Sometimes we don't model very well, and sometimes even we are not mature enough to handle the rigors of social media and the challenges that are out there. I think the biggest piece of that, though, is we have to get out of that rhythm of when we sit down and we don't immediately have something drawing our attention, that we don't just draw out our phones. We look for people to interact with and engage with. That could be just as simple as when you get in your car, maybe the rule is we don't have phones or headphones on. We get to interact with each other and learn to have those conversations again. When our kids come into the classroom space, that we're not just immediately going into some piece of instruction, we're actually having conversations with each other and teaching kids how to have conversations and learn to interact again.
We're so excited today to be covering some of the biggest questions parents have. We call this the Smart Social Superintendent Spotlight. We address parent questions from all over the country and highlight district leaders like you and the insights you have on the latest social media safety issues.
It's Benjamin Horsley. I'm the Superintendent of Granite School District. We are here with 58,000 kids in the heart of Salt Lake County, just a little bit south of Salt Lake City, Utah. We have about 355 square miles and 87 schools spread out from mountain to mountain here in the central part of Salt Lake County.
Superintendent, it's so great to have you here on the podcast here today, where smartsocial.com is all about keeping students safe on social media so they can someday be really successful and shine online when their parents are ready. Now, Superintendent, my first question for you here today, that parents are asking us all over the country, is about screen time. And the question is, what are your tips that parents can do to better manage screen time at home?
Well, I think this is a really relevant question. And in fact, I was doing an internet and app safety, social media safety summit with some of our parents just a few months ago. And this was a prevailing question as well. And they wanted me to shut down more of the Chromebooks and provide additional restrictions for the Chromebooks we send home in our one-to-one schools. And one of the parents over here going, just turn off the Wi-Fi, right? It's a brick after that. So that's actually the hottest tip I could ever give you, is just turn off the Wi-Fi and make sure that, again, if they are using mobile devices, I think one thing that we tried to encourage, especially now as a district that has banned cell phones in schools, those cell phones are away from the learning environment. So when they're at home, those phones are over in another place. Maybe it's on a counter where they can charge, where they can be monitored by an adult. One thing my wife even does is if you want to use your cell phone at home, you have to come do it in front of her. And so she's sitting there at the island in the kitchen, and that's where all the cell phones go, even mine, when I get home. And so there's these different types of strategies. We're trying to do those types of things in the classroom space. I think that's very helpful at home as well, and build that structure so kids just know that's the expectation.
Excellent. Those are absolutely great tips. The next question we get from parents all over the country are a little bit about parental controls. And as we come into the holidays here soon, Superintendent, you know every kid gets a new device, whether it's an Apple Watch or a new iPhone or Android or an iPad or a tablet of some sort. So my question for you here today is, what suggestions do you have so parents can manage and use parental controls without making kids feel like their privacy is being invaded?
Well, I use Apple devices, and when I do these kind of internet safety nights with our families, this is the constant question I get asked, is how do I even do the Apple parental controls? Now there's new ways to allow for great individual Apple accounts and IDs. Put yourself in a family and have some structure where the kids get to ask for access to device. You can control their device remotely. These are all the things that our parents are asking us to teach them. And so we've created video resource to help them kind of work through that. But the simple answer is just Google, how do I implement parental controls? But to your question, I'm going to be a little contrary here. I had this conversation with my 16-year-old just the other day. I get to look at your phone. I know it's annoying, but I do that because I care about you and I love you. And I want to make sure that you're safe. And I'm sorry that your other friends' parents don't care, but I do. I care about you and I want you to be safe. And so kind of building that why behind we are there to make sure that our kids are safe. That's a reassuring feeling, regardless of whether they like the micromanagement or the access. I feel like being a parent today is just 24 hours just monitoring my kid's phone, right? And frankly, I feel that way as an educator as well. We're just constantly monitoring those devices. So if we can help them understand the why, oftentimes that really kind of overcomes the biggest barrier.
Yeah, those are such great tips. And what you're also saying that you're not saying is you're parenting more than just trying to be friends with your kids, which is so important. And every psychologist, therapist, and counselor agrees with you. It's, hey, you're going to have those tough conversations. And for all the parents watching right now, what the superintendent just said is so in line with really every counselor out there saying your kids are probably going to dislike you once a week, once a month because you took a device away because you looked at something. And guess what? We at Smart Social are your cheerleaders for that. We love you, and you're doing the right thing if you're restricting these devices that could keep your kids up late or allow them to talk with somebody inappropriately. So, Superintendent, you can see my enthusiasm. Those are 100% spot on with what everyone's saying nationwide.
Could I add to that too? I think one thing I try to emphasize to my parents is our kids don't need more friends online, right? They don't need more likes, more followers. What they need is a parent in their life. You are the only parents they are going to possibly have. And that is not the job of a school or a teacher or administrator. That's your job. And so we need to work together to make sure that our kids have the help and support they need. You're providing that parental role, not us.
Yeah, excellent. Well said. Okay, another question that we get that we really teach a lot in January and many of our events is about shining online. This is our trademark. I've written a bunch of books on teaching kids the positive side. Because of my background at Disney, we show them how to brand themselves. My question for you that so many parents have for us is, what advice do you have for parents and also for students to help students use social media in a positive way?
We really discourage social media use, really, if you're below the age of 16. We're just asking parents because we just see so many threats and bullying. Just yesterday, I got another complaint and concern from a parent saying her child had been filmed while they were using the restroom, and now it's all over Instagram. And what am I going to do about that? Our kids don't really know and understand how to use these tools in a positive way. And so it's really incumbent, especially as school leaders, when we talk about digital safety, and as parents, that we can collaborate together and identify highlighting each other, spotlighting each other, making sure that our comments are positive, that we're engendering the use in the way that we would hope people would use it towards us. Using kind and respectful comments, highlighting positive things as opposed to negative things. There's just too much negativity in the world, and why would we want to contribute to that? And so those are conversations that we're constantly having as part of digital safety, and we hope parents are having at home.
You know, Superintendent, what you just said that's so brilliant, and we believe in it 100%, is why should a student be chatting with all kinds of random other people essentially before they can even drive? And I agree. Parents, if you're watching this right now, one of the biggest goals of Smart Social is just because Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, Meta say that, 13 years old and above is when you can download this app. We strongly believe that between the ages of 13 to 15 is a great time, if they do have a phone, to only be texting mom, dad, and having really a rich dialogue. We call that training wheels, or maybe in your state, it's a learner's permit to drive the car. This really is exactly the same as a car, we believe. And then at the age of 16, it's a time to dive into how do we build a positive online presence. Parents, if you're watching, modeling that behavior at a younger age, just like not having distracted driving or maybe defensive driving, or being positive even if somebody else has road rage, you're positive and you move on. That really is what we're finding to be the best to build a student that can see it modeled at home. As the superintendent said, it is just as important, if not more important, that parents are showing this just as much as a school or a district. Superintendent, I love what you said. And I so agree with you on this age 16. And while we're not mature, I would argue young men might not be mature until we're 30. And some would say 25 is the age. I remember the day that I was at Disney and I turned 25, I was working the brand marketing division. My boss put a newspaper article on my desk back when newspapers were big, and it said, people aren't adults and scientists show until age of 25. And that was the day I turned 25. I was like, oh, I'm an adult today.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
you made it.
Congratulations. And I would agree with you. 16 or above is really when we start navigating those waters, right?
Could I just add, I think you've made a really incredible point. Sometimes we don't model very well, and sometimes even we are not mature enough to handle the rigors of social media and the challenges that are out there. One thing that we really try to explain to students when we're kind of going through this concept as part of the professional learning and digital safety that we provide is, hey, if your grandma wouldn't appreciate this or understand it, it's probably not appropriate for you to share.
Yeah.
And so really kind of using the grandma standard, if my grandma would be okay with this, then it's okay for me to post. But really just anything negative, we should be trying to discourage their use. I don't think parents have this conversation at all. We hand over the phone and we don't talk about that challenge with social media. And really it is so much humor based. And a lot of that is dealing with negativity, sarcasm, or other things that are really negative as a whole. So we need to have that conversation.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. So now, Superintendent, I want to dive into something unique. Parents ask us, we're in 29 different states just listening to parents. Millions of people are giving us feedback. They say, Josh, what makes all these apps kids are on so addictive? Well, everyone watching right now, let's hear from two high school students as they explain why they can't stop scrolling.
I think the most addictive part about social media is the constant new content that you see. You're always being introduced to new content, especially on apps like TikTok. I think the short videos, when they end so quick, you start to lose your ability to have a longer attention span. I've caught myself finding long TikTok videos and I can't stand watching the whole thing.
This generation really adapted to the fact that we don't have a large attention span. We really only concentrate for 30 seconds. So getting information that quickly, I think, enables us to just want to keep watching more. You don't even need to care about what they're presenting to you, but just the fact that you can sit there and watch it and you're oddly enjoying it. Social media is pretty addictive. People said it's like a drug. So it is addictive because you can't stop watching it. Your mind just plays on loop and it enjoys the fulfillment of everything firing in your brain to just keep watching.
So interesting to hear real teens talk about that. Superintendent, I want to show you one more of these things. These are from our incredible social media safety parent night events, where parents are wondering, what are the insights from real teens? Parents are asking us, is social media positive or negative for my kid? Again, what the superintendent just said, everyone, is 16 and above. Could not agree more. We've had hundreds of psychologists, therapists, counselors, and experts on our podcast, and it really hones in on that age. You could wait longer if you want. Well, let's hear from some students why they think video apps are so addictive.
Part of what makes social media so addictive is how the algorithms are based on using content to judge whether or not someone's worthy and using people's short attention spans to evaluate them as pieces of code, which also means that social media doesn't really care about your opinion, but really what keeps you on that platform longer, whether that's from likes, comments of engagement, sharing it to other people, or even just watching it through. The algorithm judges you as a piece of data and whether or not someone should be praised for being controversial or thrown away for not being exciting enough, even if they're pouring their heart and soul into the content. It is a heartless beast. When I spend too much time on social media, that can look like being happy because something really cool happened in my friend's life. They went hiking. A friend of mine saw snow for the first time a couple of days ago, and it can make me feel very happy and energized. But other times, it can just be really draining. It can be really negative. It depends who I'm following. It depends what's being posted.
Superintendent, I'd love to get your insight on this. We just heard from 3 teenagers here in the United States on their insights on addiction. And hey, our 60-second attention span is now down to 15 seconds. We're turning into goldfish, essentially. And these teens are maybe more insightful than us, right? I'd love to get your insight here.
Well, I think the key thing here is that what we just heard is absolutely correct. There's an algorithm there designed to draw you in. It's there to draw me in. It's there to draw you in, and especially designed to attract new customers that will be lifelong addictees. I just made up a word there, but the concept is that they don't care about you. They are there to get their product into your hands and continue to have you monitor that. So when we take it into that kind of consideration, we help and have that conversation with our children and with our students and help them recognize that there are positive uses for this. But most of us, even adults, can't control overcoming some of that. If we're just sitting there and we pull out our phones, I think the biggest piece of that, though, is just we have to get out of that rhythm of when we sit down and we don't immediately have something drawing our attention, that we don't just draw out our phones. We look for people to interact with and engage with. That could be just as simple as when you get in your car, maybe the rule is we don't have phones or headphones on. We get to interact with each other and learn to have those conversations again. When our kids come into the classroom space, that we're not just immediately going into some piece of instruction, we're actually having conversations with each other and teaching kids how to have conversations and learn to interact again. Once they can get the positive feelings and emotions that come from those types of interactions, we can control these other addictions just a little bit better. But how many times have you just sat down and immediately the first thing you do is what? Pull out your phone and start scrolling.
Yeah, it really is an addiction, and I couldn't agree more with you. And I think most of America would agree. It's an addiction that they love. Let's call it cookies or ice cream. Ice cream, in my case, I just love it. For all the parents watching, remember, if your school district is a partner, we host weekly live events on all kinds of incredible topics. But remember, to all the districts that have this is what we want your principals to feel like, because we really believe in principals. They're the mayor of a small town. Principal Dylan, a friend of mine, says, Josh, before we met you, we had 50 social media incidents per year last year on our elementary school campus. Now we're down to 5 incidents. I have more time to be a school principal again. Parents, we want that for you too. More time to be a parent again. Duran Wilson, Director of School Engagement, says the 50 Plus Live, the weekly events, give our community a chance to join on their phone without software on a date and time that works with their schedule, and there's a replay in multiple languages. Superintendents like Tom Butler here in California. Josh, we can't stay updated on all the latest apps, so we appreciate the Smart Social team of research experts for keeping our 8,000 parents in the know. Parents, if you're watching this and you're like, my district is a partner, what's coming up next? October was Anti-Bullying Month, the world-class 45-minute anti-bullying program that you will absolutely love. It has teens in it. If you liked what you just saw, please come to our next one. November is Disappearing Messages, the hidden dangers parents need to know. December is Optimizing Parental Controls without invading your kiddo's privacy. That's right, they're all going to get a new device or have devices around them. January is How to Shine Online. February is Avoiding Strangers, Understanding Social Media and AI's Impact on Teens. That one's really powerful. What are video games doing to your kids? The impact of screen time on motivation, and fun team boot camps all summer long. Parents say, I learned when my child shares something, the issue is likely larger than they first suggest. What a powerful tip that one of our experts shared. It's important to not over or underreact to this. I found it very helpful to learn what is and is not considered cyberbullying, along with the types of cyberbullying messages. And in addition, I learned more about the social media that my kids want to use, as well as helpful tips to understand my teen's communication with her friends. Parents from all over the country talking about their kiddos. We have hundreds and hundreds of these every single month in our database. It's really nuts. Also, school districts that are partners. If you haven't talked about a cell phone-free solution quite yet, we have something that we want to challenge you with. Districts all over the country are asking us for a solution that helps teachers get students focused in the classroom. We're all trying to figure this out. Parents have asked for a way for their children to contact them in an emergency while increasing classroom learning at the same time. How do we do that? Well, in an emergency, students with our new device can pull their phones out if they need them, thanks to a Velcro patch on the device. You'll see it on the right there. It is a Faraday case that keeps the device from buzzing or beeping. It hides it unless the child in an emergency needs to pull it out. Also, teachers are telling us this is a really nice hybrid solution because they're in charge. If you're taking a test, put it away. I don't want to hear it. Let's put it away for the day. All right, Superintendent, we're back to you with my final two questions. I'm so grateful for you here today because we really are in line with that, a rich dialogue, also the age of 16. The next question we get from parents is cell phone free, which we just talked about. What's been your district's approach or journey to going cell phone free in the classroom?
This is kind of a new concept to us. We had our policy district-wide was to allow individual schools to decide. We have 87 schools, right? So this last spring, our governor kind of challenged all the districts in our state to look at a potential district-wide cell phone ban. And there's even legislation at the Utah State Legislature to address this as well. The default policy is K-8 cell phone free in the entirety of its campus. So our policy, and our board approved this during the summertime, was a K-8 ban on cell phones. Can't have them out and open on campus during school hours. In our high schools, we do allow for phones during passing times and at lunch times. I actually teach a class at one of our high schools, and you can see the benefits of this. We have lockers on one side. Kids come in, they put their cell phones in the lockers and lock it up and get the key, so they have access to that. They're not getting that anxiety that comes from not knowing where their phone is or not being able to understand what's happening with it. One of our high schools has gone with the pouch concept that you've talked about here on your podcast, and we're kind of just seeing what's working well. What the kids are obviously trying to find ways around some of these things. But I will tell you, as somebody who's providing instruction in one of our high schools, I've never gotten through the curriculum faster, is what we're hearing constantly, is that our kids are paying more attention. They're more engaged in the lessons and instruction. And my full expectation is that our outcomes are going to be better because our kids are actually learning and understanding in a cell phone free and distraction free environment.
Yeah, so well said. That's a really interesting point you just said. We're getting to the content faster. Kids are probably retaining more. Would you agree?
Oh, yeah. I don't know how they couldn't. We're engaging more. They're having more conversations. It appears they're internalizing the content more. And as we kind of go through some of our benchmarks and our quizzes and whatnot, I mean, that's very clear that the cell phone ban is working.
And parents, if you're watching this wondering, oh no, is this going to benefit? Well, yes, it's going to benefit the child to be able to learn more, retain more in the class, but there's also a hidden benefit that's so beautiful that so many schools talk to us about. It's going to allow the student at school in a trusted area to be able to build social skills. Rather than let me text Billy across the room, let me actually ask that person something and let me practice, because maybe they're at home, maybe you're working on something and they're texting on the couch. We need them to start building those social skills. Am I wrong there, Superintendent? What are your thoughts
Oh,
on
you're
that?
spot on. And I think the thing that we saw, especially that first week in a junior high environment where they've traditionally been beholden to these cell phones during lunchtime, the lunchroom was loud. It was extremely loud because guess what? Kids were actually talking and interacting with each other again and learning to be social. What contributes to loneliness and depression? The inability to be able to converse and build relationships. And that's what this device does, is it actually isolates us more and more. And our kids don't know how to interact. So they're learning those skills again here in Granite School District.
Yeah, so well said, sir. So well said. Okay, another question that parents are asking us is on the topic of avoiding strangers in dangerous situations online. We talk about this in our February program. Hundreds of thousands of people see this, and we're just excited to get your insights on it. My question for you, sir, is what is your advice to parents and students to avoid talking to strangers and avoiding dangerous situations online?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I see when I get this question or people are surrounding this question is that's not going to happen to my kid. My kid would never do that. And when we talk to kids, I always, even with my own kids, I give them very specific examples and I say that happened right here. We had a situation with a 12-year-old girl hooking up with a 20-year-old male, got picked up at one of our schools. And so I use that example all the time. I'm like, these are real people. They're here in our community and they want to harm you. And you need to avoid those conversations. You need to talk to a trusted adult and let them know what's happening and contact law enforcement as appropriate. I think if we talk about it in broad generalities, especially now that we're seeing these sexting blackmail type schemes that are happening, just helping kids understand that it could happen to them and they really need to be very cautious if they're contacted by a stranger.
Absolutely. Superintendent, this month, and this will come out in the following month, but we have a disappearing messages month where we teach the 7 steps that law enforcement teaches us how predators will contact your kids to build trust, to groom, to build a barrier or a wedge between kiddo and parent, unfortunately, and say, don't tell them, they wouldn't understand. Create another fake Instagram account so that the parents can't get into the Finstagram, the fake Instagram, the secondary account that the parents don't know how to log in. And then they can use disappearing messages over there to then chat. It's devastating. Parents, I hope that you'll take a look online, as the superintendent said, or join our replay in 12 different languages so you can see how predators and strangers and bad people actually are very successful at chatting with parents when parents say, as the superintendent said, that won't happen to me. That's what they want you to say. And we would like to be there showing you the 7-step dangerous process they use to get any kid to send them inappropriate photos or to trust them.
I had a situation in our district where an 8-year-old boy who had been given access to Instagram and a smartphone was getting gift cards from a stranger in California in order to share inappropriate photos. And it's just one of those things that breaks your heart, because why does a kid have an 8-year-old have a smartphone? Why do they have access to Instagram? Why is that phone not being monitored by a parent? There's all sorts of questions come out. We just had a 12-year-old girl down the road in another community picked up and kidnapped just yesterday by a stranger. Where did they meet? On social media.
Devastating. Again, it won't happen to my child. Parents, that's what they want you to say. Let's reevaluate that. Also, parents, don't miss our weekly live parent events. We've got them every single month and really every single week. Even around the holidays, there's a lot to do. We have teen-led video lessons in the program and a premium parent newsletter. We're so excited with what's happening in the future to protect hundreds of thousands of parents. We hope you'll join us as well. Hey, Superintendent, this has been a blast. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have all of you. Now, everyone watching right now, you can learn more at smartsocial.com, where you can join. And there are $5 Starbucks gift cards that we give away at our live events just for participating in the activities, protecting yourself, your community, and also sharing our knowledge with other people. We'll see all of you on the next episode. Thanks so much for supporting us. Have a great day.